Good morning, everybody. I have to press this one, huh?
Yeah.
No? That's okay. Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Glad to see so many of you here. I'm Rogie, and I'm going to talk to you about Behat functional testing. Maybe just a little question. I always like to know who I have in front of me. Who considers himself as a developer? Majority testers. Yeah, well, go ahead. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Okay. Good. Okay, welcome. And maybe let's defrag a little bit and make some.
FTC next to you, sort of move in.
Defragging. Hello. Still within the 15 minutes. Yeah, like 15 minutes. Whoa.
There's still a few more seats this side. Let's come round.
I'm going to start the fan club. That's it. Yeah, okay. Well, I just started for the people entering. I was just asking who, so almost everybody, developer, testers, so there were a few of them there, not too many. Who's a developer with some testing experience? With Behat experience? Ah, that's all right, that's better, okay, very good. Okay, I'll first introduce myself, and managers or product owners, project managers, no one? Yeah, one, okay, good. Okay, so I'm Rogie. I'm an electronics and computer science engineer, but that's just a paper. I was working from 99 to 2003 in Acuna. I'll tell you why later. After that, I was an independent worker for 10 years. And in 2014, I started at Capgemini as a Drupal developer, but very fast I got into testing. Before, I did not have any testing experience myself. For a couple of months, I was working on bpost, the postal services, the Belgian postal services. We did a project on bpost.be and bpost international. And then after a couple of months, I got into a project at VRT, which is the Belgian broadcasting company, the Flemish broadcasting company, and we made all the websites for the radio stations and the TV stations, everything except what was then the redactie, what is VRT News now, and Sporza. We did not do those. And that at VRT I was a tester in the Drupal team. After that I switched for 1 year to Medialaan, and now since a couple of months I'm working here in Ghent at Faris as a Drupal developer again. Welcome. Hello. Well, I just wanted to show you this picture at Acuna, my first job. I was working together with this guy. He turned 40 this Monday. Happy birthday to him! And he lost all his hair and on his face. It's Dries Buitaert, who was then doing his PhD at the University of Ghent here. My desk was on the other corner there. These guys I was working with at VRT. That's also Frederik is giving another session right now about his Drupal bot and chatbot, and that's also the reason why in November we always leave some mustache, some mo on to remember that picture. It's 4 years old, by the way. We made a new version today. I don't know if we got prettier in 4 years, but who knows. At Medialaan, this was our team, mostly Aussie people. Maybe some guys might know some guys. And that's my happy family. Okay, just because they are taping this and my boss will probably watch the first 5 minutes of the slide, I want to make some promotion. To make some promotion, and if you're interested, okay, go ahead to watch the website. Remember to say that you saw my presentation, and we go to have dinner together. Okay, a little bit about testing. Testing is very big. It can become too big if you want to do everything. It's almost impossible. There's really two real big kinds of testing. Is the unit testing and functional testing. I will be talking about functional testing in this session, but of course unit testing I have to say a little thing about it too. So we all know, or you should at least know, that unit testing is about testing very small units, just verifying that your small units, your functions, your methods, your classes are working okay. Functional testing is more to make sure that the client gets what he wants, or that the user can do what he wants, or what he has to do on your website, on your project, on your application. It's about end-to-end testing, user interfaces, user experience, so the whole system. The Drupal 8 way of doing that is by having 3 different levels of testing. The Drupal logo is not very visible, see, but okay. Drupal 8 has 3 different levels. It's the unit testing, the kernel testing, and the browser testing. For that, inside Drupal core, there are different classes. If you do unit testing, you can extend unit test case. For kernel testing, it's the kernel test base, and browser testing, it's browser test base. What are the advantages of unit testing with PHP unit? They are very fast. There's no setup time, so it's something a developer should do to make sure his function does what it has to do. And you can find your problems very fast. If you refactor a function, a module, or a class, you run your tests again, you will see immediately what fails and what's still working. The problem here is that you never have a guarantee that the whole system is working. It's not because one function works that it still works together with all the other things. That's why kernel testing is one level higher than unit testing. It's about verifying that components can still work together. Now, of course, if you have like 2 modules in Drupal and you want to verify that they work together, the execution time of your testing will be slower, and basically because the setup time is much higher. You have to initiate a new database, put testing data in there. That all takes time, and it's slower, but it's still somewhat easy to find bugs. It's a little bit, the system setup time is a little bit like installing a new website, and when you hit the profile, when you start profile, and all the modules start installing and doing the install hooks, that takes time. That's exactly why it's getting slower. And then the last set of tests that you have, where you can verify the whole system, also user experience and user interfaces, or the browser testing, but they run very slow. It has a very high setup time, because in fact for almost every scenario of every feature, you get a new installation every time again of your whole application, of your whole website. It's difficult to locate bugs, because okay, you will see something is not working, but you still don't know where the problem is. See, so that's why it's very important to try to get as much unit testing, because if you know there's a problem here, you will still have to go find where your function was, what function was failing, or what interaction between functions was failing. So it takes time, and they are pretty difficult to change those tests because they are all in code. That's why, in fact, I think it's better to skip, like, let's say, 1/3 of this and all the browser testing in a project. Not doing it the Drupal way, but doing it the Behat way. Who has Behat experience? Okay, well, and the other guys, you know what context is, jerkin language. Yeah, okay, well, I'll just continue then with the whole thing. I'll try to explain a little bit of everything. Installing is very easy. It's a composer project. Since Behat 3.0, it's even a symphony project now. Everything can be installed with Composer, so you go into your project directory, you type Composer require Behat, and you get the smallest Behat application you can have. Now, you will soon see that you will require some additional packages. I'll explain later what contexts are, but one of the most important, we are in a Drupal camp, so we want to talk about Drupal, is the Drupal extension. Drupal extension will give you, if you install it in your project, will give you lots of different steps that you can use who are really Drupal, about Drupal. I mean, you can say, given I'm logged in as a user with the administrator role, the browser will pop up, Behat will inject a Drupal user into your database, it will log in, and you have your screen that you can start work with as a Drupal user. After the test is finished, Drupal extension will remove the user too, and all its contents that it's made. So your database or your system does not get corrupted by testing data. Behat is another context which is very interesting for people who want to test APIs. It has a very good JSON steps that you can use, REST functions, REST steps, XML, normal browser things like filling in forms, filling in text, pushing buttons, following links, and things like that. Also to switch iframes, for example, for people who want, who still, hello. He's Drupal programmer too. Yeah. Oh. Wish I was that intelligent at that age. And there's another one that you might require from now on. It's Drupal Behat. Because Drupal 8 has the CK editor by default now in the system, and before it and CK editor has it's a JavaScript thing, but it creates in fact an iframe where your CK editor is, and it hides in fact a little text or a text area. And so it's very difficult to fill in the CK editor area because you have to switch to iframe, and that's a context that does that for you. I'll show it in one of my things. Of course, that's why I was asking if there were some managers or some project managers. You probably want reporting. So these are also two very useful reporting formatters. Once your tests have finished, you know there's an error, but you get a nice report: what steps, what scenarios, what features were succeeding, and what were failing, of course. This is a very good one if you have like a big screen where you have your dashboard, Jira dashboard or so, and you want to show the results of the latest testing. It has some very nice charts that you can show on the screen. I saw that this one is now inside Drupal core, inside the Behat core also, so it might not be necessary anymore to have it. So once you do the composer require, composer will get all your packages, and you will have your Behat binary in vendor bin Behat. With Behat, there comes there's a directory structure, the default directory structure or the features. So if I talk about features, it's about test files. It's not about the Drupal 7 features. Sometimes people get a little bit confused if you talk about a feature. Context has nothing to do with the context module. So the test files themselves, they go into the features directory. The custom contexts, you will always get one. It's a class. It's a feature context class. You can extend yourself your context. So if you have one website that has a very particular authentication system, you might want to say write a step that says, given I'm logged in as user this with that password, that Behat will then execute your function and give you your session in your browser. And of course, the most important one, is the configuration, of course, of Behat himself is in the Behat YAML file. Now, of course, I think everybody knows. I'll have. I just made a little project myself. You see, so here in the composer, is that readable for everyone? No, I thought so. View, zoom in, Control plus. That will be better, I think. So here you see so the Behat formatters. Where is Behat? Drupal Behat, and Behat itself is on top. So you will get a features directory. Inside Bootstrap, you've got that feature context, which by default just uses some other context classes. And right there you could write extra steps if you need so. Bootstrap has nothing to do with Bootstrap CSS, of course. It's just about bootstrapping Behat. And so in my directory I have, let's do 3. You see I have a few feature files, and these contain my tests. There we go, and I just want to, before I do this, I want to do up. It's yep. We've got a devil box. I see the problem. Do it in this directory. There we go. Anybody knows Devilbox? Yeah. You'll have a lot of work. Tomorrow Bram is giving a session about the Devilbox. It's a system that we use for at Varis for. It's a Docker system and very easy to install, to configure, and you get your SQL server, your PHP containers, everything like this. You just saw it. I just started it. Okay, so we passed this one, and I'll talk a little bit about the main parts that I see in Behat YAML file. One of the important things are that there are like four different things in the Behat YAML file: the suites, the profiles, the sessions, and the configuration of your extensions. So the suites, you already saw it there in my tree of the feature files. The sessions, the different suites, or in fact the tests that you want to run with what contexts. So Rogie is just my name, tomrogie.net, Rogie.net frontend. So this is a suite that will test the front end of the whole website. You give your path, so feature that features the directory Rogie.net map front end, and then inside that directory are all your feature files. And these are the contexts that will be loaded to test that suite, that bunch of tests. So we got that feature context that Behat gives you by default. And these are the classes, the Drupal extension classes. It's a message context. So then you can use steps like whenever you do something, I should not see an error message containing something went wrong, you see. One of the other contexts that I always use for my front end is the Behat browser context. And say if you're waiting for an element that has to appear, the default timeout is 30 seconds. This is a configuration of that class. Whenever I go too fast or it's not understandable for somebody or you have questions, don't hesitate to interrupt me. This is a backend suite. So another part and other contexts that get loaded. What you see here is that you will get the Drupal context. That's the one that I already said that can give you steps like I'm logged in as an administrator into the system. With this one you can run the rush commands. With this one you can run cron by default. You can generate content, whatever node you have. I'll show later. And if you have, but I did not do that. But in lots of projects at VRT and at Medialaan, there's an API, and right there, of course, that API is not really Drupal. You don't really need Drupal to test the API. So I just load the Behat API. It's not API; it has to be REST here, and the JSON context, so that I get steps like verify that the JSON is correct. I need to have a root element with that name, or it should contain that structure. In that element, the value of this element should be this, all things like that. So that's about the suites. As you see, just an ID, split up your suites. So whenever you're working on the back end, that you don't need to run the whole suite of all the tests all the time when you deploy. If you deploy just a front end, then it's easy to configure your deploying system to run only the front end tests. So I always divide between front end and back end, and if you have some APIs, get the APIs apart though, and only load the context if necessary. The second part in a Behat YAML configuration file is the context parameters. I already showed you one, the browser timeout. Now these are some more. The tilde there says, okay, load all the default of the Behat extension. This is the reporting tool. And the most important one for us, of course, is the Drupal extension and the Mink extension. Here you specify, for example, where your Drupal root is, just web, what API driver it will use. I'll show that later in one of my feature files. If you want to use Drush and you have an alias for your website, then you can put it here. Also, the region maps of your template can be in here. There's even a way to translate your certain fields, like the login field, the password fields, but I don't do that here. The third one, and that's probably one of the most interesting ones, are the sessions. In the sessions, you define what browsers you would want to use, what devices if necessary. So even Android devices, iPhones, iPads. One session, the good driver is in fact just a curl browser. It just makes curl calls. Very interesting. Well, that's the one that you're going to use when you need browser that doesn't have. When you don't require JavaScript, it will use that browser. And then I define always like some other browsers. This is a Selenium Chrome desktop browser, so it uses the Selenium server. Browser Chrome. This is the Selenium server that it will connect to start up the sessions. Localhost default port is 4444, and some capabilities. That's something that Selenium always requires to. You can emulate a mobile device like the Pixel 2, the Google phone Pixel 2. Inside Chrome, so your browser pops up and it's like you press the F12 and specify an emulator. So you can test your mobile website. And I've got some more. I don't have Windows machines, but if you want to test, you can simply use BrowserStack, for example, or connect another Windows machine to your Selenium server. In fact, BrowserStack is nothing more than a Selenium grid in the cloud. So if you instead of connecting to your local host, to your own Selenium server, you can use the ones at BrowserStack. In the documentation, you can find what you on BrowserStack. You can find what you have and you do exactly the same, but it's much lower. That's why I prefer to have my own Selenium when I run tests. See, and then you just specify Microsoft Edge. So there you can define that you want to run on that particular version of Windows on whatever version of Edge or Internet Explorer if you still want to. And the profiles. In the profiles, the last part of it. The profiles are the websites where you want to run the test. So I have my local. If I run on local hosts, this is what that Devilbox thing is doing. So you make in fact your local environment. If you're on a development environment and it's, for example, shielded with username and password. You can give up that URL, or if you want to run on production some tests, then you just use the full URL that everybody can visit. Okay, so I'll just show it. That will not be readable, I suppose. See, so that's the full. That's the full Behat YAML file that I will be using in the demonstration later on. You see, so the suites are there. The formatter is how you're going to get your reporting. The extensions, Drupal extension, the Mink extension, and here comes the sessions. So here are all these sessions. It's a YAML file, so watch out for your for your spaces, it has to be correct or it won't run. See, you have, for example, Chrome headless, goes very fast. There's very good Docker images for it too, so it's almost the same. I have one, I mostly use Nexus 10, which is pretty old, but it's still one of the defaults in Chrome. The Pixel 2, you can emulate iPhone, iPad. I have an Android device. If you can connect your Android device with Appium. So Appium is the link between Selenium and your real hardware device. If I have Firefoxes here, so I have Firefoxes here, Internet Explorer. You can install that. The Microsoft Edge. Nobody will remember that key, I hope. But it's just a trial. It's just a trial version, so don't worry. So my Chrome desktop and an Edge desktop, and after that, I have my profiles. Now, why do I separate all those things so much? Well, that's who doesn't know Jerkin? Jerkin language? No. Okay. No. Okay. Well, just an example then. Jerkin language is in fact a way of describing your texts, and then Behat interprets that text, those steps, to do what it has to do to run the tests. So there are the scenarios, and as you see, even a manager. Where's the manager? Even the manager can read your tests. Given I'm logged in as a user with the editor role, and I am on /node/article. That's a URL. Sorry. So and then when I fill in the following title, new article, that means that in title you should type in a new article, and the status okay. That's publishing it. And I press the save button, then I should see the success message, new article has been added. See, that's a test that can be run. So that's the most important part of a feature file. You can have, of course, lots of them. You can make an outline so that the same scenario gets iterated with different values. Maybe you want to have five articles, and you can put these between brackets, and in a little array behind, you can make it iterate over the scenario a couple of times. On the top, there's a feature that's just a description. You can write whatever you want there, but it's nice to have on your reports. Mostly you use something like, in order to do something on the website as a certain person, I should be able to do this or to do that. The tags are pretty important. This one means that you're going to use Drupal, the Drupal extension. So whenever you use something from that Drupal context, you will require that tag. And also, if you want to have a JavaScript session in your browser, or if you want a session from Selenium that can interpret JavaScript, you will also need this one. Otherwise, Behat will run that simple good browser. I'm not too. I always put here at desktop, at mobile, at tablet, because you can have different scenarios. For example, to run only on a tablet, or only on a mobile, only on desktop. You'll see why later. So I hope that makes sense for the Jerkin explanation. So it's just a way of writing in a understandable language, your tests, so that you don't have to know any programming languages. To run it on localhost, you just run your Selenium jar. So that's something that you can download from Selenium HQ. It's a Java application. Run it. You need to have browser drivers if you want to run Chrome or Firefox. On this machine, you will need some extra drivers. I'll show immediately. And now everything comes together. If you want to run a certain suite with a certain profile, so on a special on one of those websites from the profiles, then you can just run vendor bin Behat -s the suite name -p the profile name, and you run your front end your front end suite on, for example, the development website. You can have extra tags, so the tags that I put it there in the tags that you put there, they will be selected. If you say desktop, all the scenarios with desktop will be run. You can choose a special name. You can specify the name of your scenario if you want to. And a very important one is the -d to search for a certain term in the Behat context. Okay, let's try it. Demo time. Always. Control up. So first of all, I still consider this working. Well, so this is the Selenium jar. Suddenly they have a very special way of numbering their versions. The Chrome driver here, this one, and this one are the two drivers. So this is the one from Chrome. This is the Gecko driver is the one for Firefox. Selenium is already running. It runs by default on port 44. If I, if I now go to my project and I say Behat, where is it? Yeah, I specify my configuration file, specify my suite. I say on my local system, and I don't need these. It should pop up. Voilà, there you go. See, so it's just a normal website. I'll show you, and there's already something going wrong. But well, my test fails. Okay. So you see the scenarios, feature front end. In order to see the newest articles, I can connect to the front page. Content is visible. Given I'm on the home page, when I wait 3 seconds, I put that in because otherwise it just pops up and it goes away again. This is the one that goes wrong, of course, because if you run on Chrome, you need to add. Well, I have to add a tags -tags because this scenario was not meant to run on a desktop. It's a mobile. See, I put the mobile tag here, so it should not run on real desktop. If you want to run the backend tests, you just change it to this. You will see it already logged in as a new user. It's going to go to the status page and see that there are no errors. That's already another test. It creates an extra comment. And then I have some timeout also, just to make it a little bit visible. Otherwise, it goes too fast. See, so given I'm logged in as user with the authenticated rule, and I'm viewing an article with the title, this is a test, so then the Drupal context will insert an article with that title. Then I wait until I see add new comment, when I fill in foobar for subject, and I fill in the rich context editor. That's the context that I said with CK editor. It switches to the iframe of CK editor, and then it fills in comment. It waits 4 seconds, then presses save, and then waits another 5 seconds. So that's why I lose so much time now. The other. See, this is the one. It logs in as an administrator. It goes to the status page, and it should not see these. So this is local hosts, so the developers are happy, all the tests are running, but how do we run it on the server now? On development environment, staging environment, or production environment? In fact, it's just the same. What I didn't show yet here is if I want to change my session, so if I want to change my session, there's an environmental variable, Behat params. It has a JSON. It's a JSON parameter, so it's sometimes difficult to extend or to write. Remember to backslash your backslashes and things like that. If I set this one, this is the one that we already had, but if I now say, okay, I want to run it on Selenium Chrome Mobile, so that Pixel 2 emulator that I used, I just set that parameter. I run my, well, let's try it. Let's try the backend on mobile. But of course, I have to switch my tags so that only the mobile tests are run. And there you go. You see it uses the emulator, and it still does what it has to do. And that's also the timeout, I guess. See, and now that test that was running without the mobile, that failed, just one of the first things, now gets executed correctly. So it's just the same, not 100%, but almost, because what I always have to do extra is to open an SSH tunnel to the server. One of the problems of Drupal extension is that Drupal extension needs to have the Drupal API, of course, so it needs to have the source, the code of your project, of your website. So it has to run on the server. It's logical if you want to insert, if you want to use the Drupal API to insert a user, of course you need the code how to do that. So what I'm gonna do right now is open the tunnel to my machine. In fact, it's there's no keys here. It's this one. It's where is it? This one here. You see, so I do a remote forwarding of port 4444 on the server to my local machine. So my same Selenium machine will answer. If I now go to the server page, Devilbox, there we are. I can run. See, so now I run the suite, the backend suite on another profile, of course. I'm on the development server. If I run that, it will come back. See, it it's an AWS instance, an EC2 instance where that website is running. So the tunnel brings it back to my local machine. If you have one desktop machine somewhere with that Selenium on and the tunnel to your development environments or to your staging servers, you will see your tests running on the machine. See, so it's really on develop.rogie.net now. Okay. In fact, that was already the demo time. 5 minutes left. Okay, I thought you would have not needed that. Well, what I wanted to show you is that a little bit more is the GitLab environment. So I have my Rogie.net project here. This is the code. Should be on develop, and I use the GitLab continuous integration. And if you see, so I do the building, the deployment then goes, the deployment does an rsync. It does an rsync to my machine on AWS, and then it starts running the tests. It in fact makes a secure shell connection, and it starts up Behat. Where is the? You can't see it, but it's here. Here I'm exporting the Behat params. So the Behat, but that's too small. The Behat params or here. See, and then I specify the tags, and that way I make a connection between the right browser with the right tags, the right tests. And if because I think we might have some questions now, if you look at the pipelines, they don't look very good. But that's basically because there's apparently a problem with the Gecko driver. It does not find any elements anymore, so it's a bug. What was happening here? See, but you start the building, you do the deployment, and then all the Behat testing starts. You get your output like you have it. See, everywhere, and. That's basically it. Any more questions? Not everybody at the same time. Okay, go ahead.
The Drupal extension, for instance, it's within the Drupal extension that you have the documentation to know how to write down?
Yeah, exactly. So well, just repeating the question. So inside the Drupal extension, you get all steps like this. In fact, so I'll run it right now. If you do the D-L, you get a list of all the steps that you can use. Maybe it's even more interesting the I, because then you get more information. See, so for example, the Behat context makes all these steps. When I switch to the main frame, so you go back from, if you have an iframe in your in your application, and you switch to see, I switch to the frame with a particular name. You can switch back. You've got all these steps that you can use. I'll try to find one with from Drupal extension. Here, the Drupal extension, show the last response. Well, it's not a very interesting one. See, then I should not see a certain element, but there are things like, given I have a certain node, given a node with that title, with that body, with that field, and so on. So it injects all the content straight into the database. It doesn't use the browser to click. it just gives you, and you can start using the context. A context is in fact just a collection of all these different steps that you can write yourself also if you really need to. There were some more people, yeah? No, Behat by itself, no. Because so if you would write a scenario and you really do like a front-end user, you start creating articles, they will remain there. If you use the Drupal extension, then yes, it will remove everything. So if you create a user, at the end of your scenario, the user will be deleted, and all the content goes with him. So then it's all. Of course, if you run these things on production, of course, watch out, because for a few seconds you might have.
Do you write your own steps?
Sometimes you can't. So if I write my own steps, I do sometimes. Yes, I wrote, for example, a context to test the single sign-on client at Medialand. So somebody wants to register, then you get an email, and you have to click on the link before your account. You can't do it even in the backend. Nobody in the backend can certify a certain user. So I really had to write something that connects to a Gmail account, waits for 5 minutes for an email to arrive, and then click on the link. So, why not? And then I just have a thing like given I receive a registration mail from Medialand with that email address, and then. But everything goes in code, so you don't see it happening in code. Also, Facebook logins and things like that. Then you have to write your own steps. Somebody else? We have time left.
Yeah. Supposed to finish at 10 to, and it's 8 minutes to.
Okay. Well, there's just one little thing that it's really more about testing. Because most of developers will always know how to make it work. The problem always exists, what do I test? And say, yeah, that's always the biggest problem with developers, and there's one thing that you might try to look up, and it's pairwise combinations of pairwise testing is a certain testing strategy, even very interesting for unit testing. If you have, for example, a function with a few parameters, see, and you want to unit test your function, I'll just keep it simple and say, okay, these are all booleans, so they only have value false or true. How are you going to test your function? What the output of your function is? What are all the different possibilities? You say, okay, I'm going to test all possible values. So one time I'm going to start with this, and the second test is this. Everybody already feels that's not enough. So what's the other option is to do everything. Okay? No. That's everything. So there you already got 8 different scenarios. You understand immediately if you have a few more parameters, you have an array, you have a select somewhere. This explodes very fast, unmaintainable. Now there's another way to do. And it's always to make sure that you're testing every possible pair of parameters. So that you have every possible pair of this, of these, and these. Okay. And then you have, so for P1, P2, and P3, so you have null, null in, no, and no, no. And then for 2, they have no, 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 again. Oh, I'm already, but there are applications to do that. You search for the all pairs, or pairwise combination, and you'll find like a few tools, a few scripts where you can just give it a CSV file with all your different parameters and the number of possibilities that you have for that certain parameter, and it will give you it will return you an array but I know it should be 4 here. So I'll have to look it up anyway. In fact, the pairwise combination comes from HP when they were developing drivers back in the 80s. You remember those windows of your driver? You can fill in all the different kind of steps. They had like 14 million different combinations when they verified everything. That would have taken them months to test everything. But when they were using this way of testing, it came back to, I think, 140 different cases. And statistically, you can prove that if you do this, you already have 95.4% chance to find defects. If you would have like 5 parameters and you take triples instead of pairs, then that combination, then for that driver, it would already be 800 or 1,000 different cases, and you only go up. The statistically percentage goes up by maybe 1% for 5 or 6 times more testing. So you see, if you want to test always everything, it's impossible. Don't. I hope this you understand a little bit what I try to explain with this. So happy testing to everybody.
Bit over, but it's got a break now, so you've got an extra time.
Okay, now it's aperitif time.